Okay. Well, welcome back from lunch. Hope you enjoyed food and good conversation with everybody. Before we get into our navigation panel, I just wanted to say a few things. One is I just really wanted to thank everybody who was involved in planning this conference and making it such a success. So all the team members from EERC, particularly Melissa Quall, who really had a huge hand in making everything run so smoothly. So we appreciate all of that work. And also, same thing from the GW team, as well as from the team here at Pew, which has been fabulous to partner with and to make this day be such a success. So thank you, everybody, for all of that. Really appreciate that. And also just wanted to recognize, too, the many new attendees that we've had here this year, and just really say how much we appreciate you joining us and being part of this community. And we hope that you've really had a good and valuable experience and keep coming back. And also, for folks that are here, please reach out to me and Kyle if you are interested in presenting at a webinar or being involved in a future conference, whatever it is, or you have ideas about things you'd like to see the NCRN do or things you would like to do for the NCRN, let us know. Be in touch with us. We're always looking for new research that's coming out. So if you have things that you're going to be releasing soon, let us know. We would love to know that and to be able to profile that. Also, along that line of thinking, Kyle and I are also planning in the coming year to be developing something like a researcher registry. So basically, we'll be asking you, we'll be following up in an email, but we'll be asking you to share information on the work that you've done, the work that you're planning on doing, things you're interested in, so that we can just better track who's doing what and then make connections where it's helpful for folks in the field. So just a preview of things to come. One other quick update, and we'll stop taking up time, but this does have relevance to the navigation panel. And just a quick update from last year for folks that were part of the conference. We had a panel from which an idea evolved around having a nutrition label for credentials, or a credential information label, which is just to say that that idea that was birthed on one of these conference panels has now become a project that we are partnering with. It's a partnership between Credential Engine, EERC, and ACRO, also with colleagues from Trellis who are helping to collect data and do focus groups just to begin to get an initial idea started. And there will be a lot more engagement and outreach once that sort of initial outreach to to students, to employers, to higher ed providers, to all kinds, all stakeholders. Once that work is done, there'll be more engagement. So I just wanted to let you know that that is happening, and that was a nice outcome from last year's conference. So okay, enough with my little introduction and announcements, but I really want to hand things over to the navigation panel. I'm going to turn things over to Phil Oliff, who is from the Pew Charitable Trust, leading the Quality Skills and Education Pathways project here, and he is going to be moderating this panel today.
All right. Thanks so much, Michelle, and welcome to our panel on navigation for the lifelong learner. If we lived in a perfect world, today's panel would be unnecessary because everyone would have easy access and crystal clear information about educational pathways that lead them to personal and professional fulfillment. But if you listen to our AI panelist friend this morning, you know we don't live in that world. Information barriers are steep, and it's not always clear what employer needs are. They're constantly shifting beneath our feet. And so that's why it's critically important to understand how students navigate these pathways and credentials if we want them to be routes to personal and professional success. To date, we have had very limited information on how learners navigate non-degree pathways, but that's really starting to change, thanks in large part to the panelists we have with us today. So today they're going to talk to us about what they've learned about how both teenagers and adults navigate non-degree pathways and what it all means for policy and practice. So here's how today's session is going to go. I'm going to start off by doing really quick introductions for the panelists. They're then each going to lead with roughly 5-minute presentations. Then we're going to have a panel discussion. And then we're going to try to leave some time at the end for audience questions. So I'm just going to give you the Cliff's Notes version of who's up there. If you want to know more, you can stalk them on the internet. So let's start with Carolyn Healy. Carolyn now leads Britebound's research strategy and translates data into meaningful insights that inform programs and policies aimed at helping young people make informed choices about their futures. Her specialties include advanced data analytics, mixed methods research, and making complex findings accessible and accountable. Next, we have Kathy Hughes, Dr. Kathy Hughes. Dr. Hughes is a senior research consultant with the Rutgers University Education and Employment Research Center and the principal of Edwardian LLC. Hughes' research and publications have addressed college readiness and high school to college transition, career and technical education, dual enrollment, and various aspects of community colleges, including non-credit workforce education and reforms to developmental education, among others. And finally, we have Richard DeMartino, who's a professor of innovation and entrepreneurship at the Saunders College of Business at the Rochester Institute of Technology. His research centers on technology commercialization, breakthrough innovation, and entrepreneurial motivation. But more recently, Richard has turned his research interest to the challenges facing higher education, pursuing interdisciplinary work that sits at the intersection of market design, entrepreneurship theory, and education policy. So now I'm going to turn it over to the panelists to do some quick presentations, and then we'll have a panel discussion. So maybe we'll go in the order that does that work? That I introduce you? All right, let's start with Carolyn.
Okay. Hello, does this work? Okay, great. Are we doing slides or no slides? I should go up then.
Yeah, you can go to that.
There's a clicker. All right, there's a clicker. Clickers and I are not friends. I will try my best. Okay. So again, 5 minutes is just going to be the super, super cliff notes. I wanted to share with you some of the work that Britebound has done, understanding both young people's perspectives on non-degree credentials and how they're thinking about them, and parents. So we are really situating ourselves. We've heard a lot about the higher ed space, a lot about employers, and a little about K-12, but that's really where we're thinking about as an organization, helping young people make informed, confident decisions about their future so that they are not diving headfirst into expensive, long-term things that just don't really fit who they are and what they aspire to do. And parents are very important. So I wanted to leave with just a couple of quotes. I'm not going to read them all, but a lot of parents are expressing to us that they are having challenges. So like the challenges I've been having is finding all the correct information. And I feel like I'm not knowledgeable about the whole process. So parents are amazing. I think we all who like live in this non-degree credential world sometimes have trouble making sense of everything that is out there. Like, you know, so many different things that we've been talking about over the past 2 days. And then we expect parents who don't live in this world every single day to be able to help and understand this world as well. So we're also doing some really cool research with school counselors, but I don't have time to share that with you today. And really, I'm not going to read you the data on the slides, but we know that parents are interested and involved, and they're influential. So teenagers also tell us that they really rely on their parents and other family members to help them with this navigation process. Most young people are not doing this alone, and parents are, for many young people, not all, but parents are really that frontline, like, biggest influence. Parents feel optimistic and ready to help. A lot of them feel like they don't know enough. Many don't feel fully prepared or supported. They don't have access to the information. Their school may be not helping, particularly parents whose kids go to public school. But they feel good, right? We're starting from a place with parents of optimism. They're excited, they're proud. 90% of parents tell us that they think their child will achieve their education and career goals. So there is this sense of optimism from parents with middle and high schoolers that like they can do this. They just need the information and support to help. A lot of you probably have seen statistics like this. Our research finds the same. Teenagers are less likely to choose college than they were before the pandemic, but that is a durable shift, right? And again, we say college here. When we talk to young people, often they don't distinguish between 4-year, 2-year, sort of non-degree programs housed in institutes of higher ed. So we have to walk that kind of tightrope between how do we make sure our questions are accessible to young people without kind of flattening the variety. But yes, so that is a really durable shift, and interest, like teens who really want to go to college, like it's dropping every year that we've been studying. Same for parents. Apologies. Our graphic designers are amazing, but they use different colors and different, yes, it's slightly different type of graph. But that went from 74% of parents in 2019 said their top preference for their child was college program, down to 58%. So we are seeing it in both young people and parents. You can see that there's been growth in the non-degree programs. It's a light blue on the teen one and the green, again, forgive the graphic design, on the parent one. But what's really growing is the undecided piece. So the drop in college is not being totally made up for, hey, I want to do a different sort of non-degree program, or like military, direct to workforce, gap years have all stayed really similar, but there's the non-degree programs are not making up the drop in college interest. There's a lot more undecided out there. So even though parents feel prepared, there's still a gap. Okay, I did not graphically design the slide. I'm so sorry. What I did want to point out here is that the reasons for non-degree paths are maybe not what you think. A lot of people say, well, it's affordability, it's the cost, it's the time. And that's not what parents are telling us. This is parent data. So for a minute, just look at the green column and just read down. The top things that parents said is that they want their kid to do non-degree so that they can learn skills for a specific career and that it fits their kids' interests and skills, right? I think financially affordable is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like the 9th on the list. So that surprised me that was not rising to the top. It's really focused on career and fit, which I thought was really interesting. And then the left column is parents who preferred a degree. Some slight differences, but it's really not about the money first and foremost in parents' minds. Okay, I'm going to skip this one because I got the 1-minute thing. So again, the trend away from like college right after high school is significant, it's durable, it's persisting. It did not bounce back after COVID. There's a lot more uncertainty. And the one thing I kind of skipped over is that parents are actually still telling us that a degree is important, but they're not convinced that it's the right next step. So I think it's a real shift in who is looking at non-degree credentials. It's no longer just those like adult, like non-traditional college students who are looking to get a credential after being in the workforce or interrupted by some. This is being seen now as a frontline option for a lot of young people who are making a decision for what to do next after high school. And then the last one is information and advising haven't fully caught up to this yet. We surveyed counselors and a lot of school counselors, and a lot of them still said that the thing that they're measured on is how many of their kids they can get to apply and go to college. And they're not feeling as confident advising on the non-degree pathways for all the reasons you heard today and yesterday. It's fragmented. We're not really sure what's quality, what has value, and there's so many different types that non-degree just feels like the Wild West, and it's hard for counselors and advisors to navigate that, parents and kids too. Okay, I will stop now. Thank you so much for bearing with my slides here.
Hi, everyone. Apologies, because when we are finished, you will see me run out. I have a friend who's having a 70th birthday party this evening, but that birthday party is in New York. So I will be running out to the train, but if you want to chat sometime later with me about the study or anything, please get in touch. References. Okay. So this is a study done at EERC. We released a few months ago. The co-authors with me are Nikki Boyd and Maria Espino and Michelle Van Noy. And we embarked on this study because there was really little research on students enrolled in non-credit workforce programs. So we really thought it's time to talk to students and talk to them one-on-one and find out their motivations, their goals, what do they hope to get from the programs, and then to find out a bit about their work employment and education histories. We did focus on adults without a prior degree. We know there are a lot of adults with degrees who are enrolled in these types of programs too, but we screened them out of our study. We wanted just to talk to the ones without degrees. These were 45-minute semi-structured interviews. We spoke with 83 students across 3 colleges, Mount San Antonio in California, Nova in Virginia, and LaGuardia Community College in New York City. The age range of these 83 students was 18 to 60, and more than half were 25 to 49. Very diverse sample racially and ethnically, and as you can probably guess, more females than males. These are some of the sample programs that these 83 students were enrolled in, just to give you a sense. So you see a lot of healthcare programs, but some others too, business, trades, IT, commercial driver's license, and a few others as well. So quite a range of programs. And I'm going to go right to the findings. Nonlinear and interrupted post-secondary pathways. We found that most of our interviewees had prior college experience, and most of them in credit programs. About 2/3 of them had been enrolled in credit courses only. Some had been previously enrolled in non-credit and credit. And some students had been trying multiple times. A student said, I've tried going to school, I've tried in my 20s, I tried in my 30s, I get impatient, I have dropped out so many times. These are some of the reasons they gave us for not being successful when they had tried previously. And for some of these students, this was decades of attempting college. So didn't like online learning. Some who had, enrolled right out of school, they'd already spent high school in online learning, going to college, didn't want to do that. Some did say they weren't quite mature enough, weren't quite motivated enough, academic preparation, financial need, of course, personal and life issues. One person said, I was going for computer science. I got stuck on some of those English classes in the beginning. I'm like, I'm not an English person. I'm a computer person. But you got to tick some of these prerequisites, and I just gave up. So we asked them about their primary goals for enrollment, and we did find for some of the students it was quite urgent. They needed an immediate job with better prospects than their current employment or those who were unemployed. I need to make money. That's the bottom line. As I said, for some it was quite urgent. Others did see it more as an exploratory or stepping stone. They were interested in healthcare. Some of them, though, they just kind of picked any healthcare to see if then they would be interested in pursuing the healthcare field. But a lot of very poignant stories about these students' needs and their situations. Going to our topic here of navigation and learning about career and college options, they really did use multiple information sources, friends, family, coworkers, online sources. They would say, well, I learned about this job on TikTok. Or a friend told me that her friend was a pharmacy tech, so I thought that sounded interesting. Then they would Google, someone said, I just Googled the best paramedic programs in New York, and then I kind of filtered it down to Queens, where I live. Occasionally, social services like SNAP, a SNAP case manager was helping a woman enroll in a medical billing and coding, and others also mentioned TV shows. But we really found a real lack of any kind of formal career counseling among these students. Now, we asked the question, why now? Why did they make their way back to college now, and why in these programs? Well, enrollment just seemed feasible to them. They were attracted by these programs. They were free or low cost. They were affordable. There was a college nearby. They were short-term with convenient schedules. For our 3 colleges, Mount Sac in California, those were mostly free. They have a state funding stream there for non-credit. There's Fast Forward, of course, in Virginia. In New York, there's no state funding, but LaGuardia was very proactive in trying to get scholarships, so students would maybe pay for half of the program. But here's what they said. It was convenient. It was super accommodating. Free is key. And here's this quote from this person. Like I said, so many of these stories were so poignant, but this person said, this is the first thing that I have started and completed. So a few really quick reflections. Of course, advising, this is what we're talking about today, on their full range of options. Maybe some of them would have come back sooner if they had known that there were these shorter term, more affordable options for them. For sure, some of them would not have come back at all in the absence of these options. Feasibility, affordability was really key. And many of them also said, they weren't interested in continuing on to credit programs. They said, I've tried that. I've tried it maybe multiple times. I wasn't successful in that. But this is feasible for me. I can be successful in these programs. Thank you.
Everyone enjoyed seeing the picture of me when I was 12. I didn't realize I sent that in. I'm Richard DeMartino, and I'm a bit of a duck out of water here. I'm a business school professor in innovation, and a group of us in the business school partnered with, at RIT, partnered with the University of Rochester's education school to look at some central questions. And the question we looked at is, with traditional higher ed, 60 to 70% of people enter it. And when you look at the fact that almost 40% don't finish and often pick up debt, and there's somewhere, depending on how you interpret the literature, between 10 and 25% of negative ROI, why do people not find alternatives? So what we did is we started an initiative where we were going to do a deep dive. We interviewed 130 people for an hour apiece. We were going to do a deep dive looking at how young adults, their influencers, and some providers of credentials actually perceive credentials and look at the information. So what I'm going to do is, again, give you a 50,000-foot view of what we did. And where's Amanda? Hi, Amanda. Amanda actually is a partner of ours, and if you're interested in seeing either of our two studies, you can see them on Amanda's website at Northeastern. So two parts of it, what we did. First, and we were very fortunate that the Charles Koch Foundation actually funded this, we interviewed 16 to 18-year-old students about their perceptions of post-secondary education. Most of it was college. All right, but we had to ask about college because they didn't know anything about credentials. We looked at that, and we looked at, and this is going to sound odd, the bottom 70%. What did I mean by the bottom 70%? Is we were looking at real middle-class people. The average income level is $60,000 to $70,000. So we were looking at individuals at that level and lower. So we targeted high schools that actually served inner city, rural, low income, and then working class to a little bit higher income. And we went through all that, we content analyzed it, and then we talked to 20 counselors. And we asked them specifically because supposedly career development was part of their kind of rubric, part of their responsibilities. And then we did all that, and well, actually, then we interviewed 30 service providers, institutions that gave this. And then after we did that, we did a 2,500 person survey where we informed students that were 17 to 18 years old about alternative credentials and looked at where this hypothetical demand could be. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of background. How do I turn? Wait. Okay. So the issue of students are not informed. All right. So I know that's going to shock all of you, but the degree that they weren't informed was fairly profound. As was mentioned by one of my colleagues up here, they could not distinguish community college from four-year degrees, from private schools to public schools, from credentials. They could not make sense of all that information. They got information anecdotally. The highest level of information came from the parents. And if the parents went to college or went to community college, they actually took something from that. But if they didn't, they were kind of lost. But the parents gave them information that was 20%, 20 years old. So they were giving them information that wasn't really on task. And if their extended family had problems with debt or not finishing, they carried those stories in their heads. They went to the counselors, most of them, and which is odd because most of these students we met through the counselors, most of them said the counselors didn't really help them, and you'll find out why in just a few minutes. It wasn't the counselors didn't want to help them, but they had no information whatsoever of credentials. We would ask them, and then ultimately we would go through lines, and they just wouldn't understand that. They had friends, and their friends helped them with sense making, but when you have no sense, and you don't know where you're going, you can't do sense making. So they had no idea about the process of coming up with what I want to do. And so if you looked at the triple uncertainty of what they have, they came and they said, I don't know what I want to do. Does anyone here have a kid that's a teenager? They don't know what they want to do. I didn't know what I want. I still don't know what I want to do, all right? So you don't know exactly what you want to do. All you know is what you know. Some of them know a little bit about what they don't know, but the huge swath is what you don't know, you don't know. So they had the uncertainty of why am I going to school? They didn't understand the link between a career and what you had to go through. They didn't understand the cost, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. They didn't understand the price of college, and with price discounting, they had these misconceptions of you go to a private school and 55% is just price discounting, 25 in public schools. So, I mean, these are 4-year degrees. 1 minute. Okay, what did we find that was interesting? All right, what we found was interesting is the students didn't have a concept of ROI, 0. One student who we talked to could put together how much is it going to cost for what I do and what kind of generated income am I going to get. All right, so we see a lack of knowledge. But the counter cases were profound. What were the counter cases? The first counter case, career and technology training. People that had been through it understand credentials. They understand credentials, and even if they're going to go to college, they understand that, gee, I can go and do IT in a 4-year degree, or I can go to a community college and get this and then transfer it over. They were someone had made sense of that in the career and technology area, and they got that. The other were homeschoolers that had worked with community colleges because they had leveraged their high school to understand that. And the third one, which is the most interesting, is that there is an urban school in Brooklyn that serves all men, all young men, and they put a huge emphasis in the community on career counseling, of going to college, of going to certificates, of mixing them, and they place such a high focus on that. They would have all their alumni come in and really bring the young men to school, and they had the highest awareness of how to put this in. One last thing, and then I will let you go. And as I said, I could have talked for about 5 hours here. I know time's up. He's going to kick me out now. One of the more interesting things is that I think that with young adults, they have a different way of thinking than older people. You have to orchestrate it. They're young people, and they have to understand what they're doing. And one of the things that we found out is if you're lower income and your parents didn't go to college, if you don't know what you want to do and you're scared of costs, you don't go to school because you don't know what you want to do. If you're middle class, or if your parents went to college, you go to school to figure out what you want to do. And that's the old system when you could just go and think. But if you're taking on $100,000 worth of debt, then it's kind of a hard place to think because it might be, I don't want to do this. So thank you very much. And if anyone's interested, please take a look at our research and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for. Can people hear me? No. Hello. Got it? Okay, excellent. All right, thanks for some really interesting and informative presentations. So we have time for a brief discussion, hopefully go a bit deeper on some of these issues and also explore some cross-cutting issues across your presentation. So Kathy, your research mostly focuses on adults attending community colleges. Carolyn and Richard's, yours focus on teenagers. And those seem like, in many ways, very distinct populations in terms of how they navigate the world of non-degree credentials. So I'm wondering if you could, help us understand or think through what might be unique about those populations, adults and teenagers, as they try to understand this world of non-degree credentials, and what might be some common challenges in terms of making educational choices. Kathy, maybe we'll start with you. on adults?
Sure, thank you. We did not have any students mention their parents, or if they did mention their parents, they said their parents never encouraged them to go to college, and that's why they were either not successful or didn't go. So they did mention friends and family, but more like cousins or other friends in getting information from. So it does sound like there's a pretty large difference here in information sources depending on age and time of life.
Yeah, definitely. There are differences for sure. I think one theme I heard across all of ours is there's not a lot of clear information, and I think that that is a challenge.